Max from Overdorf, and welcome to Schlock.down, a cheap and inferior web series about horror, movies, and most of all, horror movies, instituted by my restricted access to better audio and visual gear as a result of my state of isolation. Today's episode, Lockdown. Many of you watching may be familiar with Locke Key from the hit Netflix series, but it was a comic book first. Now, before I unlock the door and turn the page, I should warn you that there may be spoilers ahead. So if you haven't read the comic book or watched the show, you might want to leave this episode of Schlock.down in the well. Or you might echo. Well, the first episode aired on Netflix in February 2020. The first issue of the comic book came out in February 2008 by IDW Publishing. It ran monthly for 37 issues, the last of which came out in December 2013 and had 5 one-shots. I discovered the book myself somewhere near the end of the run, when they started republishing the issues in hardback collections, which ended up totaling 6 volumes. I asked my local funny book provider for a good horror comic, and Locke Key was suggested to me as a comic book written by Stephen King's son, Joe Hill, that being a shortened pen name for Joseph Hillstrom King. Though upon its release and for some time thereafter, that was a little-known fact. He wanted to see if he could establish his own place on the throne as a writer without using his father's name to get there. But I was sold and left with Book 1. Welcome to Lovecraft. For those of you that have only seen the Netflix series and have decided to keep watching in spite of my warning, that might be welcome to Matheson to you. The showrunners decided to swap out one iconic horror author's name for another as the name of the fictional town Locke Key takes place in. That being H.P. Lovecraft for Richard Matheson. What I read that day was a fantastic tale about a bunch of children who inherited their father's dark legacy. Sounds about right. Needless to say, I was hooked. Not only on Locke Key, but Joe Hill, who, like his father, is also a very successful author and rapidly grew into one of my all-time favorites. Fun fact, not only does Joe Hill have a cameo in the Locke Key Netflix series as a paramedic, but he was also the little boy in the anchor segment of the film Creepshow, written by his father Stephen King and directed by the late George Romero. Locke Key is not the first time Joe Hill's work has been adapted for the screen. Netflix's In the Tall Grass is co-written by both him and his father, while his novel Horns was turned into a feature film starring Daniel Radcliffe. AMC adapted his novel Nosferatu into a series starring Zachary Quinto. Nor was this the first time a network tried to adapt Locke Key. Fox filmed a pilot back in 2011, but it was not picked up. The pilot starred Nick Stahl as Duncan Locke, the children's uncle. That role would go to Aaron Ashmore in the Netflix series, not to be confused with his twin brother Shawn Ashmore, who played Iceman in Fox's X-Men movies. I could go on about Joe Hill, and maybe one day I will, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about Locke Key. But not just Locke Key. I'm here to talk about the keys specifically, because I myself am a keeper of the keys. When the Netflix series first aired and I started seeing this world that I'd only previously seen as ink on paper come to life, I asked myself, wouldn't it be rad if there were replicas of the keys? I mean, the keys themselves are kind of like their own characters, aren't they? You know, I'm sure as a viewer or a reader, you found yourself asking what kind of fantastical key you were going to see next. You know, what was it going to look like? What was it going to do? What was its name going to be? Upon a Google search, I found out that not only was there, but they weren't replicas of the keys in the Netflix series. They were replicas of the keys in the comic books. Now, in the show, they've introduced 12 keys, while by the end of the 37-issue comic book run, they introduced 40. Though legend has it, there are 100 keys in Keyhouse. Skeleton Crew Studio has produced replicas for up to 30 of those keys to date, starting all the way back in 2009 with the Ghost Key. And they're not only high quality, they're affordable. Right out of the book, based on illustrator Gabriel Rodriguez's designs, who, second to Joe Hill, is the reason why the comic book is the jaw-dropping entity that it is. The book, as is the show, is just as much a visual spectacle as it is a great story, and very well could have suffered at the hands of another artist. Bad art, for me, has certainly trumped storytelling in the past. The keys are not only made to their own unique lifelike scale, but they're also hand-polished and plated with a variety of fine metals. Standardly, the keys come packaged in these custom Ghost Store boxes, but have also been released in these Legacy Edition black velvet bags. The Legacy Edition includes a name tag with the keys, which are sometimes hand-numbered and signed by any variety of the creative heads. For example, this key here, the gender key, is numbered limited edition 292 out of 1000 and is signed by comic book letterer Robbie Robbins. These are officially licensed replicas, so accept no substitutes. Visit SkeletonCrewStudio.com for the only real deal. Locke & Key isn't the only thing they have to offer either. They have an entire Joe Hill collection, as well as offer officially licensed replicas and one-of-a-kind collectibles for other IDW titles, such as John Layman's Chew, and Dark Horse titles, such as Hellboy and BPRD. So far, I have the Anywhere Key, which is crafted in antique gold steel, the Ghost Key, which is black nickel-plated white metal with a silver skull, the Omega Key, the Echo Key, cast in antique brass-plated white metal, the Gender Key, which is cast in copper-plated white metal. You might know this from the show as the Identity Key. With the source material only having 40-some issues to adapt to the screen, Netflix has gotten through the books pretty fast. In fact, I was bummed when I saw how fast it translated from page to screen. Before it was over, I already wanted more. In my opinion, it was in changing what this one particular key does that gave them the opportunity for more content. Created a butterfly effect, if you will, that changed the arc of some of the characters' stories. Now, I know a lot of folks will get upset at these changes and liberties taken with the source material, but the way I look at it is it's just an extension of the original content. Something you never got, more of the people, places, and things that you love, an expansion of the world you've grown fond of. Showrunner Carlton Cuse has mentioned that he has up to 4 seasons planned for Netflix. So let's face it, you're not going to be able to stay in Keyhouse a little longer without putting a few keys in the wrong doors. And lastly, my most recent addition to my collection, and the reason for wanting to share all of this knowledge with you, pun intended, the head key. Cast in bright rose and yellow gold-plated white metal, measuring at 4.5 inches long, not guaranteed to help you keep an open mind. First seen in issue 6 of the comic book series, the head key is one of the oldest keys created by Benjamin Locke. Allows user to open someone's head so his thoughts and memories can be inserted or removed from their mind. This was a rare instance where I was watching the show and having read the book first, thought that this was going to look really silly on the screen. Seeing the show, when the head key is used on somebody, they sort of like astral project themselves and a door or object that acts as a door that they use to enter their own mind. Whereas in the comic, when the person uses the key, the top of their head just opens like a trash can lid and they can like look inside their own head at little itty bitty dollhouse versions of their memories. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some work to do in my own head. Maybe while I'm in there, I'll find some more content for you guys. Thanks for watching. Aloha!